Alright, here we go. Chapter 8. We're doing the retake review, not the regular one. They're kind of the same anyway, but we're just doing this one. So it says find the geometric mean between 9 and 11. So let's figure out how to do geometric mean. Geometric mean are two ratios, okay, it's a proportion, and it says between 9 and 11. Well, our geometric mean is going to go right here and here. So I put in the x diagonally, right? You could have put the x's here, I just put them right here. Between 9 and 11, so you just hit 9 and 11, and now you just solve for x. Cross multiply, that's x squared equals, what, 99? And then you take the square root of both sides. So x is the square root of 99. Now, I'm not going to make you, I've told you this a bunch of times before, in Algebra 2, when we study this stuff with square roots, I'll have you simplify them and you'll be marked off if you don't simplify it, but you could have just done this. You could have, instead of putting 99, you could have put 9 times 11, taken the square root, and then it makes it real easy, doesn't it? Square root of 9 is what? 3, square root of 11. So I would accept either way. Alright, so either way you do it is fine. Don't put it in a calculator and give me a decimal number, okay? Just keep it the square root of 99. That's the best way to write it. Which one? This one? That's an 8. 8. That's an 8. Okay, let's look at number 2. This is this one right here. It says find PS. So PS is this right here. I don't know, call it anything. I'll just call it X. Make it easy for us. Now, if you remember, this is the altitude that's drawn, isn't it? In that big triangle, it's drawn to this opposite side. Remember, the altitude is a geometric mean. So if I call the altitude x, x is the geometric mean. Between what and what? This is the most basic, simple one of these problems that you're going to do. Right? Between the two segments of this hypotenuse, between the 8 and 5. So I just put the 8 here and the 5 here. Again, it doesn't matter. I could have put the 8 up here and the 5 down here, because what are you going to do to those two numbers anyway? You're just going to multiply them anyway, so it doesn't matter where the 8 and the 5 go. They just have to be diagonal to each other. Now you just cross multiply. So it's x squared equals 8 times 5, and take the square root, so it's the square root of 40. You could break it down if you wanted to. 4 times 10, right? Square root of 4 is 2, square root of 10. But if you want to keep it like that, I'm fine with that at this point. In Algebra 2, we definitely will do this, but for right now, I'll let you keep square root of 40. We go to that? It's pretty basic. That's the altitude, is the geometric mean between the two segments of this whole hypotenuse. Okay, look at number 3. This time the x is not the altitude, it's this side right here. And you just have to know what, now this is a geometric mean, but what is it the geometric mean between? Is it just between these two segments right here? Yeah. Where are the numbers? 8 and 3. You can't read those? Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, isn't it, up there? Yeah, I should make them a little bigger on the screen. But if you see them on the computer, it's big enough on the computer. So this is 3, and this is 8, and this is x. All right, we go to that. So this is the geometric mean, not between these two segments right here, but between what? Between the, what do we say? Do you remember? This what? Nobody? The whole thing, right? Remember we saying that? Between the whole side, the whole thing, and the side that's adjacent to this x right here. Okay, so x is a geometric mean again. So I set it up like this, two proportions. X is the geometric mean between the whole hypotenuse, the whole thing. What is the whole thing? 11. It's 11, right? And the segment of that hypotenuse that's adjacent to the side, or the little piece that's next to the x. Do you see it? And what is that, obviously? It's 3. Cross multiply, x squared is 33, and x is square root of 33. You couldn't simplify that anyway. You just keep it like that. Make sense? Now, if I wanted to solve for y, I would do the same thing, except I would go between what? Between 11 and 8 this time. Do you see it? Okay, if I wanted to solve for a, for altitude, what would it be between? Between what? 3 and 8. Alright, so you could, given that information, you could find any of those sides. Alright, here we go. Alright, this time we're solving for this right here. Now this is a segment of this whole entire hypotenuse, and they give you this leg right here. Now, if I was to solve, if I knew this side right here, it wouldn't be that hard to solve for y, but I don't know the altitude. I just know this side. Well, let's go through it. This side is the geometric mean between what? Between the whole hypotenuse and what else? 4. So this time, this is the first time that they actually give you the geometric mean. They're not asking for the geometric mean, they give it to you. So 6 is actually the geometric mean. So 6 goes here and here, just like the x did earlier, correct? This just happens to, we just happen to know what the geometric mean is this time. Before we didn't, we just called it x. So the geometric mean goes here and here between what and what? Between the whole thing. Monica, what's the whole thing? 4 plus y. And the segment that's adjacent to this or next to it, which obviously would be what? 4. And now you just cross multiply. Now this cross multiplication is a little different than what we were doing earlier. You don't get a squared out of it. Well, you kind of do. You get 6 squared. But anyway, let's do this. Let's do the one with the y first. Okay, I like the y on the left-hand side. Now, if I'm going to multiply these together, I'm going to put this in parentheses and distribute. We can do that in our head, can't we? What's that going to give us? 16 plus 4y equals what? 36. Okay, now the math is easy. Subtract 36 from both sides. I'm sorry, subtract 16 from the 36, and then you get what? 20. Divide by 4, you get 5. All right, and that's all they want you to do is just solve for y. You're good to go. Daniel? To find the altitude? Yeah, but you'd be doing more work that way. You could do Pythagorean Theorem, find what this number is, and then use this number as the geometric mean to find this. To me, that's an extra step, an extra fairly large step that you have to do there where you didn't have to do it here. Okay, so I would stick with this personally. I mean, yeah, you're right. You could do that if you wanted to, but I probably would just do it this way. Okay, number 5. It says find the length of a hypotenuse of a right triangle. Well, I just stuck a right triangle down in here. Help us out. Find the hypotenuse. We'll just call that h of a right triangle whose legs are 6 and 5. Right? Or 5 and 6. Doesn't make any difference. It's in a right triangle. So, obviously, Daniel, what are we going to use? You like to use this before. Pythagorean Theorem. So, let's do Pythagorean Theorem to solve for the hypotenuse. Somebody have a calculator ready? So, it's 5 squared plus 6 squared equals what? H squared. And then 5 squared is 25 plus 36 equals h. Oops. Oh, my pen's going slow. All right, so what is that? That's 61, right? 61, so h is the square root of 61. You can just leave it like that, tell you the truth. I didn't say find an exact value or anything like that. Let's see what Anna put. Yep, she put square root of 61. I would just leave it like that. There's no reason to stick that into a calculator. Now, if you did and you got a decimal, I would accept it, but there's really no reason to. It just takes time away from what you need to do. All right, that was pretty simple. Let's move on. Okay. All right, number 6, we got another right triangle here, and it says solve for x. If you look, solve for x is right here. Notice it's not just any old triangle. What kind of triangle is the whole big triangle right here? I got 8 and 8. It's isosceles, isn't it? Remember what happens? If I come down perpendicular to an isosceles triangle, Connor, what happens here?
Well, both sides.
Both segments, right here and here? Yeah, that's right. Both segments are equal to each other. Okay, and that's what you have to realize. If this is perpendicular on an isosceles triangle, it does a couple things. It bisects this angle, and it also bisects this bottom side right here. So they're equal to each other. So if the whole thing is 5, then obviously which one is, what's that? Did I say 5? I said, I got ahead of myself. The whole thing is 10. That's better. What is this side right here? I gave it away. That's 5. Took all the fun out of that, didn't I? So now look what we have. We got a right triangle again. Right here, here, and here. I know 2 sides of that right triangle. This time I'm not finding the hypotenuse, so I'm going to set it up like this. X squared plus 5 squared equals 8 squared. So our math is just a little bit different here, not a whole lot. That's 25. That's 64. X squared equals, what's 64 minus 25? That's 39, is that right? Check my math, yeah, okay. And then you can just write x is the square root of 39, and that's fine. You don't have to simplify the radical, you don't have to change it into a decimal or anything like that. You can just keep it just like that, and I'd be fine with that. Everybody okay with that? Alright, let's move on. 45. Okay, we got another right triangle, but we have, this time they give you an angle. They don't give you both sides. So we're not going to use Pythagorean Theorem here. We could do a couple things. I think this would be the easiest way. If this is 45, what's this angle up here? That's 45 as well. So it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Do you remember the relationship between them? That the hypotenuse, well, there's no short leg on a 45. The hypotenuse is equal to what? The square root of 2 times what? One of the legs. Do you remember that? So if you can remember that, you can do this with very, very little arithmetic. So the hypotenuse is what we're trying to solve for. We know one of the legs, so what's the hypotenuse equal to then? 9 times the square root of 2. And that's all you have to do right there. Just leave it like that. That's perfectly fine. If you wanted to do a trig function, you could. But technically in this chapter, I don't think they hadn't started the trig function stuff yet on this problem. But you could. I mean, you know how to do it. So if you wanted to use, you can use anything at your disposal. Don't think just because you're using, you're in a certain chapter that you can't learn something or use something that you learn later on. You can use whatever is at your disposal to get the right answers. We okay with that? All right. All right, here's the last one. It's a 30, 60, 90. I wrote down our, what we know about the hypotenuse and the short and the long and the short. So I know the hypotenuse. The short side is going to be half the hypotenuse, which is 6, and the long side is going to be 6 times the square root of 3, and there it is right there.